Alongside Scott White and Nando DeFino, I'm George Sedano. All right, time for the hitting planner, Scott. And before we get into all the information you've amassed for us here, quick mention though, Rockies and Padres will spend the entire week at home this week, so make a note of that. And the Rangers will hit the road for the entire week.
And those are the three parks that I think have the biggest impact on the hitting planner.
Fair.
And this is the first time all three have either been all one place or all the other. Good news for the Rockies. But bad news for both the Padres and the Rangers.
All right, let's get to some specifics here on some teams. A good week for the Angels, you think, this week, even though they've been kind of a middle-of-the-pack hitting team, and we all know about Pujols. We've talked about him ad nauseum today. Only ranked 12th in the AL and RBIs, not really getting runs across the board.
Well, this is going to be a good week for them to get back on track because other than Brandon Morrow, I'm still not sold on Drabek and Alvarez. A lot of good matchups there. And look at it. It's six right-handed pitchers. Mm-hmm. And this, to me, I think especially affects Kendrys Morales because we talked just yesterday about they're leaving him out of the lineup against lefties. Can you trust him? This week, I think you most definitely can. Also, Eric Ibar could have a good week. Maybe looking a little deeper. Torrey Hunter, Peter Borges, maybe even Mark Trumbo. I'm reluctant, but you got to like the matchups.
All right, the Cubs, also a good week for them, you're predicting here. Poor hitting team, the lower third in the National League, and just an awful power team. They only have 7 home runs as a team. That's the worst in the majors.
Well, they're facing a lot of hittable pitchers this week. Not so much Vance Worley at the beginning of the week, but 3 hittable righties there against the Reds, Aaron Harang in the Dodgers series. And again, it's a case of 6 right-handed pitchers in a 7-game week. So you know Nando, where I'm going with
We were talking about it this morning.
Yeah, Brian LaHair, your favorite. I think he's going to absolutely light it up this week. Going to stay in the lineup with all those righties.
He's got 4 of those 7 home runs.
He does.
Yeah, he's red hot. And Tony Campagna, who seems to be starting in center field, delivering a lot of steals, also plays against right-handed pitchers. Yeah. Also, Darwin Barney, a decent start in deeper leagues. Giovanni Soto, if you have this. If you have a little more faith, this seems like a time he could break.
If he doesn't break out now,
you
may have to start to look elsewhere at this point.
That is true.
Let's sneak in a pitching tweet, and you can tweet us at CBS Fantasy BB. Nando, this one is for you, addressed to you specifically, actually.
Oh, great.
It says, should I drop Mott for Casilla in a head-to-head league?
No. You don't drop Mott.
Okay.
No,
I don't think so
He's
either.
a closer, yeah. Casilla, you could drop someone else for Casilla, but don't drop Mott for Casilla.
Mott only has 3 saves. I guess people are getting tired of the fact that he isn't getting opportunities or whatnot. But that's not all his fault.
Yeah, they will come.
Yeah. All right, back to the hitting planner. Now for the teams that will do poorly this week. The Brewers, bad week for them. The Brewers have not been a good hitting team though thus far this season either. But they do get a lot of home runs. 3rd in the majors in home runs. So kind of feast or famine for the Brew Crew.
I think it's going to be a bit more famine this week. I mentioned the Padres at home all week. That's bad news for the visiting team.
For any team that goes
too.
Yeah.
And then look at those last 4 pitchers they're facing.
Yeah.
Lubke, Lincecum, Bumgarner, Kane. That just has disaster written all over it. Aramis Ramirez, who's off to a slow start, still started in about 80% of leagues, but I think you could justify sitting him this week. Matt Gamble as well. Jonathan Lucroy, kind of a side note with him. Much better hitter at home last year, about OPS about 200 points higher than on the road. So a week they're all on the road. Got to sit Lucroy.
And the last team in the bad category in the hitting planner this week, the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, they've been a team that has surprised me at how poor they've been hitting the ball this year. It looks like it may get worse for them this week, though. Are you surprised they're not hitting as well as maybe we would have thought earlier in the year?
Well, Bautista off to a slow start. I don't think Brett Lowry yet is doing what most people expected from him. But just because Edwin Encarnacion and Kelly Johnson are hitting so well, I am a little surprised. But like you said, this week, a bunch of great pitchers there. Both 2 of the best rotations in the American League, and Rangers and Angels. And the Rangers game is in Toronto, not at Texas. So a lot of fringe players on the Blue Jays team. I mentioned Encarnacion has kind of slowed down lately. Colby Rasmus has slowed down. Adam Lind, Kelly Johnson, Escobar. It's like their whole lineup is fringe fantasy players. Right. So outside of Bautista and Lowry, who are must-starts every week, I think you sit all your Blue Jays.
All right, so that's the hitting planner for this week. By the way, on Twitter, I asked you earlier if you wanted to send in maybe a little NFL draft, Major League Baseball bust draft correlations. We had the Ryan Leaf, Brian Taylor, which was a pretty good one.
That was
We
a good
got
one.
one on Twitter at CBS Fantasy BB that came in a little while ago. Tony Mandarich and Greg Jeffries.
That's Greg Jeffries. I remember his rookie card. I grew up with his rookie card.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, he
the
wasn't
rated
bad.
Rookie.
He
Yeah,
actually
that's-
played, and he had some moments in Detroit. He was okay. You know, he did have some. And Tony Mandarich did too. He was a bust, at least initially, but in Indianapolis. But in Green Bay, he played pretty well.
Yeah, well, you could do Jamarcus Russell and Matt
Actually,
Bush.
that's the
Matt
flip.
Bush.
I'm sorry.
Matt Bush.
I need to
That's a
flip
good
that.
example.
Actually, he played well in Indianapolis. He was drafted by Green Bay. It was the reverse, actually. Matt Bush
Yeah.
is a good one.
Yeah.
But today is one of those days where we'll remember who was taken in the NFL draft, and we'll think to ourselves, God, what were people thinking? You know, whether it's Ryan Leaf or Matt Leinart, it's usually quarterbacks that get nailed in that spot. So.
Yeah, and hey, follow Dave Richard and Jamie Eisenberg tonight if you
Yeah.
want to follow the draft. Our other
Absolutely.
tweeters there.
And CBSSports.com will have your draft coverage, so make sure you stay locked on to CBSSports.com all evening tonight. All right, before we go to the final segment here, which is where we look ahead to Friday's games, you want to hit us up via Twitter or Facebook, you can do so. Facebook.com/CBS Sports Fantasy Baseball, on Twitter at CBS Fantasy BB, as many of you do. And, of course, for the latest news, analysis, headlines, and insight, go to fantasynews.cbssports.com. All right, the look ahead to Friday's games next here on Fantasy Baseball 360.